Good evening, everyone. Myself is Raghu. I'll be teaching the Red Hat 7 course. Okay, during this particular class. So this is the basic demo about what is the course content and what all we discuss and all we usually see in this particular class, first demo class, and then we'll proceed with the actual topic. So coming to my experience, I have been working as a Linux administrator from past 7 years, and I have been teaching Red Hat Linux course as well as shell scripting from past 4 years. And so this is my basic background. And so I have worked on different versions of Linux, starting from Red Hat Linux 3 to Red Hat Linux 7, and there were major changes whenever we talk about the major changes. There were a lot of changes happened from Red Hat 3 to Red Hat 4, and Red Hat 4, Red Hat 5, Red Hat 6. There were no much changes, but coming to the Red Hat 7, okay, they changed the complete way of working the operating system, and nowadays it is currently an efficient operating system which is there in the market. Because nowadays each and every company is trying to move to a certain concept called cloud computing, and Red Hat 7 is very good area, and where Red Hat 7 is a very good operating system in that particular area, and these guys, Red Hat guys, has made the operating system in such a way that it is more cloud compatible. So before talking about the course content, actually, so we'll just see, you are here to learn the Red Hat administration course. So here we are going to learn Red Hat Enterprise Linux administration course. Okay, now, so as you're hearing, okay, so you're talking about Linux. We're talking about Linux, okay. So early days, actually, there was a different operating system called as Unix. Still, we have Unix available. So it was the first corporate enterprise operating system which was available in 1980s. And so the problem with the Unix operating system is the Unix can run only on its native hardware. Okay, so the meaning of running it on the native hardware means, you take a simple example of IBM AIX. You have IBM Unix operating system, which is AIX, and it can run only on IBM hardware. You cannot run it on a Dell hardware, or you cannot run it on a HP hardware. So another hardware cannot understand this particular architecture. So only IBM hardware can understand that particular operating system, and it runs only on that particular operating system. So, and hence what was the problem over there is, and because as it is, those hardware were really so costly. Okay, nowadays also even a small or medium scale company still cannot afford of buying an Unix operating system. So that much cost they usually charge you because of its efficiency, you can say. But in those days, okay, in late 1980s, around 1990, okay, what happened is a guy called a developer named called Linus Torvalds. So he started thinking of, why don't we make a operating system which is independent of hardware. Okay, so at those time Windows operating system is available, but that is only a better operating system for desktop kind of things. But still, it is not good in server operating system, as well as it is again cost effective. Cost consuming. So if you want to run Windows, you need to buy it. Okay, even if it is a desktop or even it is a server. The same thing with Unix. If you want to install a Unix, you have to buy their hardware, and you have to buy the operating system, and you have to install it. So small scale companies as well as universities and colleges, okay, and institutions, so they cannot afford of buying this much hardware. They cannot invest this much, because in those days computers were not that much widely used. Nowadays we can scale it, but at those days, no. So computers is only very limited, and very limited companies were investing huge amount of cost. So this guy, okay, Linus Torvalds, he's a developer, and he created, okay, a certain code which can run on individual hardware. So, and he named it as Linux. He named it as Linux. So this particular Linux, what it does is it drives the hardware. Irrespective of whatever the hardware. You take Dell, you take IBM, you take Sun, you take HP, you take your desktop, laptop, you take your Android mobile. Okay, everything it can drive. So Linux is not an operating system. Linux is a certain code called as kernel, which drives the hardware. So using this particular Linux code, what people does is, so let's say you take Android mobile. Everyone is aware of Android mobiles. So this Google company owns the Android, and they are the creator of Android. So what they do is they'll pull the code of Linux, and what they do is they'll apply some what are the required things like some different applications, whatever is required to run the mobile. So they add that one, they'll release it as a Android operating system. The same way, okay, Red Hat guys also pulls the same Linux code, and they will modify it and make it like a enterprise operating system. Like that, okay, everyone pulls this particular Linux code, and still this Linux is managed by Linus Torvalds only. Linux.org, the site where you will get the this particular code is linux.org. And so Linux is an open source. Linux is a open source. Okay, so what is the meaning of open source? Means the code, whatever they develop, they will provide over the internet, and you can use it. You can download and you can use it. And also it is free of cost. Okay, you no need to pay even a single dollar or single rupee. So to buy that to get that particular code, it is open over the internet, okay, and it is cost effective. And okay, so the complete source code is also available. So let's say they release a new version, that doesn't mean they'll remove the old version which is available on the internet. No, everything is available. So the complete source code from Linux version 1, Linux kernel version 1 to Linux kernel version 4. Okay, today the kernel current version is running and the developing is 4. So all this code is available over the internet. The complete source code is available. So these are the basic things. Okay, why the complete IT infrastructure is looking into Linux. The first thing is it is open source, means everyone can download and everyone can customize it, everyone can use it, and it is free of cost. Even it is free of cost, it is so secure. You compare with other operating systems like Windows. And also, okay, the source code is available for each and every developer, and someone want to modify it, yes, they can download and modify. So this is the only main reasons why each and every company of infrastructure, they are looking for Linux. So where this particular Linux is being used, okay, so you can see here 75% of respondents are already using Linux, and 14% are already evaluating it, means they are trying to migrate it. And so almost it is more than 50% of websites. So whatever you take, google.com, facebook.com, whatever you take, major sites, major companies, major websites, they use Linux in the backend. And they run a certain software called Apache for the web services. So okay, you can take any company, at least nowadays they are using Linux. So Linux is widely used, and okay, so in the recent survey, I think LinkedIn has released a survey of the managers, so saying 83% of managers unhappy with the are unhappy with the unhappy with the knowledge of the Linux administrators who are coming for the interviews. Okay, so there is a huge requirement, but we are not getting the actual candidates. Okay, so whoever is capable of learning this particular Linux and working. So comparatively with other operating system like Windows, Linux is a little difficult. Okay, little difficult. We don't say it is 100% difficult, but it is a little difficult. Why? Because Linux, Windows, everything is going to happen through graphical. You use mouse. If you have mouse, you can almost operate each and everything in your Windows operating system. Whereas in Linux, each and everything is command line. So that's the only difference usually, okay, whenever you compare Windows with Linux. So, and it makes a little difficult to understand how it is working. Once you really feel the, or once you really learn how the Linux is working, then you will definitely say Linux is far better than Windows because of its efficiency and user friendliness. What are the areas usually it is being used is, okay, so you take desktops, it is available, okay, different types of desktop operating Linux is also there, like you Ubuntu, you take Ubuntu, a couple of SUSE, a couple of things are there. Okay, so file and print servers. So file and print servers are nothing but file servers are nothing but we are using HTTP protocol on the web browser. We are using HTTP protocol. What we are doing over HTTP protocol is nothing but we are trying to get the information of a server to your local machine. So your desktop is a client, whereas you are trying to connect to a server and you are fetching the information. So you are transferring the file or you are transferring the data. So everything, okay, so in this area, okay, Linux is used, and also print servers. So printing is also, okay, I mean, a big time issue, I mean, not big time issue, you can say. It is a big time scenario where you use whenever you go with printers. Okay, so you take, I mean, you take terminals, whatever you find at our supermarkets or, I mean, whatever malls and all, wherever you go. Okay, so this how this particular thing is getting printed from a centralized server by using Linux. And ISP providers are widely using Linux for their DNS and DHCP purposes. And so countires is nothing but, okay, application servers are also being used, okay, in using Linux. Now, so before going to this one, and you take a data center, you take a simple data center where Linux is used. So you go with the components of data center. So what are the components you usually find in data center is you will find servers. You will find server. So servers will run on Linux. Servers can run with Linux. So Linux is installed on all the server. So to manage or to connect to this server to server or server to the client, you require a network device. You require a local centralized network. So networking to configure, you have load balancers, you have switches, you have routers, everything. So nowadays, every router, load balancer, and the switches, everything is shipping with Linux only. So not nowadays, it's been from so many days, all these network devices are having Linux only in the backend. So they run through Linux. So once you have storage and you are connecting, so nowadays, okay, so data is so important. So every company, so they will always bother about their data. So where we store usually the data is in a certain devices called storage devices. And devices called storages. So storages also they are running on Linux. You take any storage is running on Linux. Now nowadays we are talking about, okay, virtualization. So all the virtualization components, whatever we see, are running on Linux. So you take OVM. Sorry, not OVM, Zen. Okay, so Zen is the, okay, Citrix. Citrix is a company who is handling the Zen virtualization, which is the widely used virtualization technology outside the corporate world. So it is based on Linux. So you take VMware. So VMware and I think ESX is using Linux, whereas ESXi they are using their own kind of kernel. They are not now using Linux kernel, but early days. But the fundamental phenomenon, okay, is same. So these guys are also using, at least comparing the Linux in the backend. And now you have storages you have available, you have virtualization, you have network, you have servers. And what are the other components you usually find in the data center? You may find backup devices, tape drives. So we usually take the backup in a certain tape drives. Okay, so how do we usually store that particular one is nothing but by having a tape library. So nowadays those type libraries also being, okay, managed from Linux, means it is coming inbuilt with Linux. So almost every component you have is all the things you are having with Linux, which is open source, and each and every company is providing you the Linux inbuilt. So what are the other two things you usually find it in data center is, which is nothing but a coolant. Okay, so AC. So AC is that is a different part, but still database component. I mean data center component. So AC is also the core component. So that is a different part, and whereas batteries. So these are the core components of a. If you take a classical data center, these are all the only components you usually find inside the data center. So you don't find any other parts. So here, all the things whatever you have over there is being driven through Linux. And you can see here, okay, so you have multiple Linux distributions also. So what we're talking about, Linux is not an operating system. Linux is a code which drives the hardware, irrespective whether it is a switch, whether it is a router, whether it is a server, whether it is a storage, whether it is a tape drive, or whether it is a virtual box, whatever it is, okay, or it is Android mobile, whatever it is, it is the code which drives the hardware. Now, so there is a certain company called Kernel, which pulls the Linux code, and what they does is they customize that particular they apply some software to that particular Linux and they release it as a Kernel Linux. The same way Debian guys, Ubuntu is a Debian Linux. So what they do is they'll release this particular Linux as by customizing and adding some software to the Linux, they'll release it as Debian Linux. The same way, okay, Caldera Linux or Open Linux you can say. Okay, so this one. So you see here our Red Hat. Okay, our Red Hat guys also does the same thing. So the Red Hat guys will pull that particular code and they apply some software to that particular Linux and they release it as a Red Hat Linux Enterprise Operating System or HEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Okay, so what they do is to the kernel they'll apply some software and they release it as a RHEL. That's all. And the same way, okay, you have Slackware, you have SUSE. SUSE is also nowadays competing most of the corporate servers. So the same way, like you have Turbo. Whenever you go with Windows, so in commercial arena, so usually, okay, you'll find NT means Windows Server Operating System or graphical interfaces, but easy to grasp for users. Whoever is using, they'll easily understand. Okay, but it cannot be customized. It cannot be much customized. Okay, so whatever it is there, you have to use it. That's all. And Linux is a textual interface. So as I already told you, it is a command line operating system. So everything you need to execute a command. So, and also it has a graphical view, but usually we won't use graphical views. We use command lines only. And also, okay, so Linux gives a powerful set of tools, okay, which is helpful for you in your day-to-day jobs. A simple example I'll give you. If you have a Windows operating system, did you anytime edited a file? Yes, you may be edited by using Notepad. You open a file with Notepad, modify the data, save it. That's all. You're done. Let's say you have a 10 files, same type of files, where you need to modify the data. Some lines you need to remove on all the 10 files. So what you do, individually you open each and every file with Notepad and you edit the data, save it. Open another file, edit the data, save. Open another file, like this. You have to do file by file. But coming to the Linux, okay, so everything can be done in a file. All those particular jobs, whatever you want to remove, save it, everything can be done with a single command. Okay, whether it is a single file, whether it is a 10 files, whether it is 1,000 files, doesn't matter. Okay, you can do it with a single command. It is so easy to for a real-time scenarios whenever you're working on. So it provides a powerful set of tools where you don't find such tools which are available in Windows. There are no such tools available in Windows. But whereas Linux has very powerful tools, very good tools whenever it's coming to the computing, data computing. Okay. Now, so before going with this is about the basic introduction of the Linux. So anyhow, we'll talk about each and every topic in detail in the classes. But coming to the course content, yeah. So it is usually our Red Hat Linux, Red Hat administration. Coming to the Red Hat 7, it is divided into 3 parts. The first one is Red Hat System Administration, so which they named as RH124. RH124. The second part you have is RH135. This is RH System Administration 2. Okay, so 1 and 2 papers cover as whenever you learn, okay, 1 and 2 papers, so you are ready for applying RHCSA exam. So Red Hat will conduct an exam, okay, so based on the based on the course you completed. So whenever you are ready to whenever you have completed this Red Hat system administration 1 and 2 parts, you are ready to you are ready for writing the exam RHCSA, the first part of Red Hat certification. It is divided into 2 parts. First part is RHCSA and the second part is RHCE. So this part also, whenever you are done, you are ready for RHCA. And whereas the third part is the advanced one, so which you will find some advanced topics over here. So once you are done, okay, so you will be ready for RHCE, Red Hat Certified Engineer. Okay, whereas this one is Red Hat Certified System Administrator. This is first level, and whereas this one is RHCE, Red Hat Certified Engineer. So if you complete both the exams, then you will get a certificate saying you are Red Hat Certified Engineer. And whenever you go for the interview, so usually people prefer the guys who are having the Red Hat certification. They'll prefer. That doesn't mean they will they will definitely look for the certification. So if you have enough knowledge, that is fine. To break the interview, that is fine. But whenever you have a certification with you, so you are a valid guy saying to the recruiter, so I'm the guy, so who has done the certification. So I have done. I know most of the parts of Red Hat administration. That's what you can say. Now, so let's go with the course content of Red Hat System Administration one part. So here we'll start with is how to access the server through command line, and then how do we manage files from the command line. So if it is Windows, if you want to move file, you just go to the file, right click, copy and paste somewhere, everything. But here it is the command line, so we'll see how do we manage those files. And whenever you need any help, so how do you get in Red Hat Linux? So we'll see. So if you want help in Windows, what you do is you type F1, so you'll get help about that particular program or the Windows operating system. So I just typed help, so I got the help page. It is connecting to the internet to get the help page. The same. So then later we'll see, okay, so editing the text files, how to view the file, how to create a file, and a couple of file management. And then we'll go with managing, okay, local users, means how to add a user, how to add a group, so a couple of other things, managing the local users. There are certain things which you'll find centralized users also in the next papers, but in this paper, so at the starting, we'll talk about only local users and groups. And then we'll talk about control access. How can you restrict a user to not to use a file? How can you give permission to a certain user? So permissions we'll talk about. Control access, which is nothing but a tag. So we'll see in detail about these file permissions in the classes in this chapter, and how do we monitor and manage the process. So in Windows operating system, if you want to do something, so if you want to see what all the things running on the operating system, what you do is you go to process here. You'll see so many processes. If you don't want any unwanted process, so you just kill that process. The same way in Linux operating system, how do you do that one? So we'll see that one. So in this chapter, okay, so it is the motto of this particular chapter is just to give you the basic understanding the operating system, that's all. So the basic tasks, how do you do? So it is not about the administration. These tasks are not about administration. These tasks are about to get you familiar with the Linux operating system. So the much you practice, the much you gain, that's all. Okay, these topics are very important, which will help you while working on the other papers. So how do you control services and daemons? So we'll see. So what are the services running on the operating system? If you want to start a service, how do you start? If you want to stop a daemon running, so we'll see those things. So we'll talk about each and every one in detail. And so there is a certain service called Secure Open SSH service, okay, which is Open SSH service. So this particular service is the one which will help you to connect to a remote server. So how do you do that one? We'll see. Okay, and how can you configure that? How can you secure that? We'll see. Coming to this one, analyze and store logs. So Nowadays, at early days, you take a small scale company, you hardly have 5 to 6 servers or 10 servers, and you have a couple of administrators. So who will monitor the servers? Now the scalability matters. Well, coming to the cloud computing, the number of servers is growing just like that. Okay, so we cannot scale the number, we cannot scale the graph also. So that much big number it is growing. Okay, so we cannot monitor each and every server. But if something goes wrong, yes, as an administrator, it is your responsibility to look into the server. Okay, so what happened or what is happening. So how do you check is nothing but by referring the log files. And also, okay, so we'll talk about the basic networking part. Okay, so how do you connect your machine to a network so that you can communicate to other machines. So we'll see in this particular chapter. And if you want to take the backup or archive, if you want to zip some files and to store it in a remote location or in the same server, so how do you take the backups and all? So we'll see in this particular chapter. And so very important one, install and update software packages. You want to install a package, you want to remove a package. Means if you want to install a software, you want to remove a software. So how do you do that one? So it is a little different whenever you compare with the Windows operating system. But okay, so this is more flexible than Windows. And coming to the Access Linux file systems. Okay, so in Windows operating system, you go to C drive, D drive, or if you connect any pen drive, you'll get one more drive. You'll go to that particular drive. Coming to the Linux operating system, it is completely different how it works. So we'll see, okay, how do we manage the particular file systems in Red Hat Linux. So how do we use virtualized systems? Okay, so virtualized systems is in your desktop, we'll install a couple of virtual machines. So how do we manage that one? So we'll see this one in virtualization system. So these topics were not there in Red Hat 6 actually. So they have introduced in Red Hat 7 only. Just want to be sure, okay, at least an administrator who is doing the Red Hat course should be familiar with virtualization technology also. So that, okay, whenever you go to any company, so it being ready to understand, okay, what is the virtualization, what a virtualization, how the virtualization works. So a couple of other things. And finally, okay, so we'll have a small review about what we discussed. And coming to the next chapter, okay, so we'll see about installation of a server. We'll see about installation of a server. So even though in the first chapter there is no installation topic, but okay, it is our responsibility, or it is my responsibility to teach you, okay, how to install a Linux operating system. I'll do that one. Okay, so unless and until you have a machine with you, you cannot practice all these things, whatever we are discussing. So we'll discuss those things. But coming to the second chapter, so we'll talk about how to install a server automatically. How do you install an operating system automatically? So in the previous chapter, I'll show you installation of server manually by clicking next, by selecting something, clicking next, selecting something. But instead, if you want to automatically install it, how do you do that one? So we'll see in this particular chapter. And so as I talked about, okay, so powerful tools available in Linux operating system. Linux is having a very powerful tools. So among them, grep is the one. So if you are an administrator and you are working in some company and in a server, I bet you without using a grep command, your day cannot be there. Okay, so grep is such a beautiful command which will help you, okay, in sorting so many things. Okay, so we'll see, okay, so what are the regular expressions we usually use in grep. And so how do we create and edit files using vim editor? So there is a certain editor called vim. So we'll see, this is a command line editor. So whereas the previous chapter also we have something with files, but that is not with the VI editor. So we'll just see, okay, so how to create a file, view the data in the file, and also how to edit the text files. Okay, so how to edit the text files using some other editors, but not VI editor. So here we are using vim editor. So if you want to schedule some future tasks, so let's say I want to run a certain job, so in the midnight of today. So what I have to do is, if I am manually managing that particular task, so I have to wait in my company, so till my job done. Till the time comes. So, and I have to wait for the time and I have to execute the job. Instead, what you do is, you can schedule that particular job. So it will be executed. If something goes wrong, okay, you'll get an alert. So saying that it went wrong. or else if everything goes smooth, everything is done, so you no need to log in at that particular point of time. So you schedule that particular job. So how do we do that one? We'll see. So couple of schedulers you have available in Linux. So we'll see those things. And how do we manage the priority of Linux processes? Okay, so I already told you. Okay, so Linux is so flexible and you can customize it. Okay, so you take a simple monitoring which is happening on a building. Okay, you take a building which everything is getting monitored through Linux. Let's say. Okay, so you have fire alarms, or you have lifts, you have security systems accesses, you have so let's say some tankers also. Okay, you can monitor even water flow. Okay, if water is flowing from a tank, okay, even you can monitor that also Linux. So if a water flow is happening at the same time a fire accident has been occurred, so both the requests will goes to the processor, and which one has to execute first. So there is certain priority you can set. The same about any command or okay, whatever you are running on Linux operating system, you can set some priorities. Okay, so this is also some important thing. So we'll discuss those things, how to set the priority, how to change the priority, everything we'll see. And coming to the ACL, so this is some advanced control of files. Okay, if you want to give little more security than whatever we have discussed in the previous chapter, so we'll go with access control list. So how do we do that one? We'll see in the classes. So the next one you have is a beautiful chapter. Okay, so which is available only in sorry, in certain only in Linux operating system. So which is called as SC Linux. So using this particular SC Linux, how the security you can provide to the operating system. So we'll see this one as a kernel firewall. So this is a kernel firewall, SC Linux. And coming to the network defined users and groups. So previous chapter we talked about only local users and groups. So in this chapter we'll talk about network defined users and groups. And then we go with performing something on the disks. Okay, so performing something on disk, how to create a partition, how to add a disk, how to remove a disk, all simple things we'll see in this particular chapter. And then we have is logical volume management, LVM. So if you want to extend a disk, whenever you go with a normal partition, it is not possible. But instead, if you go with LVM, it is possible. Even on the fly. Even on the fly means everything is still running on the operating system. You can do whatever you want. You can extend, you can reduce. Okay, everything you can perform on LVM. So we'll see how do we do that one over LVM. So there are certain concepts. We'll see each and every. And how to access a network file system. So if something is shared from one server, how to access that from on the client side or another server. So we'll see NFS shares. And also we'll see Samba shares also. NFS share is only you can share from Linux to Linux. Whereas SMB share you can share even to Linux to Windows also. So how do we do that one? We'll see. And the next one you have is, okay, so we'll talk about booting process. We'll talk about booting process. Boot process is very important, okay, whenever it comes to the Linux operating. You power on the machine, you just click on power on and automatically you'll get a login screen even in your desktop. Okay, so you click, even if it is a Windows machine, you just power on the machine. So automatically something is happening in the backend and automatically you'll get a login prompt. So you provide username and password, then you'll log in. But coming to the Linux, but what is happening each and every step, okay, it is you should be aware of. So that's the reason boot process is very important. So how can you make a firewall over the network? SC Linux is kernel firewall. So this firewall is network firewall. Okay, network communication with firewall. So how to we'll see how to configure the basic firewall. And so once you are done with this done with these things, so you are ready for RHCA exam. So if you thoroughly practice, so you can do that one. And the next chapter you have is RHCE. So here you have all the things whatever you see over here is advanced topics. So how do we control service? How do we control service? So in the first chapter we just reviewed the services and daemons. So in this chapter we'll control the services and daemons. And so we'll talk about, okay, we already talked about the networking part, but that is IPv4. But coming to here, it is IPv6. So this nowadays, now people are using, not widely, but people started using. So this chapter is also included new in this particular Red Hat 7. It was not there in Red Hat. if you have multiple network cards, so how do you manage that one? So bridging. So we'll see that one in this particular chapter. And how do we control network port security using SC Linux? Using SC Linux. So the previous SC Linux, whatever we have seen is basic, and whatever you see over here is little advanced. So advanced SC Linux and advanced firewalls. We'll see here. So how do you manage the DNS for servers? How do you configure a DNS server? So how do we configure a DNS server is, what is the purpose of DNS server is, you type google.com, so automatically that Google will get resolved into an IP address. So how it is getting resolved? So through DNS server. So we'll see how do you configure a DNS server and how do you configure the DNS caching. So how can you configure your server to send an emails? How do you configure your server to send emails? So we'll see that one in configure email delivery chapter. So how can you provide block-based storage? So in the previous chapter we talked about NFS share, so which is a file sharing, and whereas you have another type of sharing called as block level. So the the sharing of data is of two types. One is file sharing, other one is block sharing. So the previously is file share, NFS Samba is file based, whereas this one is block based. So we'll see how to create a iSCSI network device and how to present it on the remote server. So we'll see this one in that particular chapter. And also, so provide file-based storage using NFS exports and Samba file shares. So previous chapter we have seen client part. So here you are seeing server part. And so configure MariaDB database. So MariaDB database is widely used in cloud computing, which is open source, and because of scalability, so MariaDB is so famous, and MongoDB is also there. But so Linux is shipping with Red Hat Linux is shipping MariaDB as default database. So we'll see how do we configure this database and how to interact with the database. And also we'll talk about so Apache HTTPD web service. Apache HTTPD web service. How to configure a web service. How to create a website. So this is all about Red Hat RHCE part. But in RHCE, they have introduced a certain shell scripting concepts also. The advantage of the Red Hat 7 course is, so once you are done with Red Hat 7 administration part, so even Red Hat guys have introduced shell scripting as a mandatory part, because early it was not there. This is also the new concept they had introduced. Why it was not there is, as already told you, Red Hat 7 is an operating system which is compatible with cloud computing. So whenever we talk about cloud, the number of servers is also more. So if you want to manage multiple servers, so manually managing is highly impossible. You can have thousands, you can have lakhs of servers also in a big company. So in such companies, so you cannot manage servers individually. In such cases, you need to write some scripts and you have to manage them. So we'll see how to write a small shell script and how to perform those tasks. How to perform those tasks using shell script. So let's say here you take small one. So you talk about you talk about this one, simple one. So you talk about control network port security. So you want to control a port on 1000 servers, whatever you have. So you write a small script. How do you control on a single server and push the same control on 1000 servers, and you're done. So how can you do that one is through shell scripting. And so we'll see a couple of concepts in shell scripting and so all these things. So how do we configure a shell environment? Of other things we'll talk about. And so the very major thing, so they have introduced in this Red Hat 7 is Linux containers. So this is the OS level virtualization. So in the first chapter, whatever we have seen is that is Red Hat virtualization. So but whereas this coming to this one, this is Linux containers. So which is OS level virtualization. So when you whenever you compare an operating system powering on, whenever you power on a machine, so how much time you may take? If it is a very fast server, it may take 10 seconds. A very fast machine, it can take at least 5 seconds. But you go to Linux container, so it will take less than a second also sometimes. based on the capacity of the server. So in 1 second, okay, so your machine is ready. So do you know, nowadays you're seeing, okay, so Amazon, Flipkart, okay, some other sites, they are providing, some offers, okay, so offer time, so their number of hits going to hit in that particular server, hit that particular website is obviously more. So if the hits are growing, okay, so if they want to add some additional, okay, additional instances to their website, so they use Linux containers only, and which is called as Docker also. Okay, so Docker is a different thing. Linux container means it is only with the operating system. So Docker means it contains an application also, customized application. So you see here Linux containers Dockers. Okay, so how people are managing, okay, so their capacity, how they are planning their capacity planning. So nowadays people are planning or using Linux containers. Why? Because so within less than 5 minutes, the operating system will install and it will be ready for usage. And you take a Docker, it takes less than 10 seconds even, okay, so to make the instance ready. So let's say 1,000 hits are coming to Amazon.com, and more hits are coming, and people or the administrators who are working over there, so they thought of adding 10 more instances, so to support the next 100 hits also. So what they'll do is they will invoke 10 Dockers. So automatically Dockers come into the picture, and automatically the hit goes to this particular new server. So this is certain advanced topic nowadays going on. So yes, we'll see the brief overview. Okay, so what is container, what is Docker, how it is being used. Okay, so where it is being used, and finally the component. We'll just talk about the what we have discussed in this complete chapter. So this is all about our course, and if you have any questions, you can ask me.